as the day fades and night begins to embrace the world. Let your worries drift away like leaves on a gentle stream. Tonight, I invite you to listen to a tale that weaves together the thrill of adventure and the warmth of companionship. In the stormy night at the cabin, you will journey with a group of friends who face the unknown, reminding us all that even in fear, courage and friendship shine the brightest. So snuggle up, close your eyes, and let the story guide you into a peaceful sleep. It was a chilly autumn afternoon when four friends, Dakari, Jabari, Omari, and Imani, decided to escape the hustle of city life. After weeks of studying and working hard, they longed for a break. The plan was simple: a weekend at a cozy cabin in the woods, surrounded by nature. They packed their bags with snacks, flashlights, and blankets, ensuring they had everything they needed for the adventure. As they drove away from the city, the sun began to dip low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the landscape. The trees lining the road swayed gently in the wind, their leaves rustling like whispers of secrets. Imani sat in the back seat, her excitement bubbling over. "We'll have so much fun," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Dakari, sitting in the front passenger seat, turned around and smiled, his heart light. "We can roast marshmallows, tell ghost stories, and explore the woods." Omari chimed in, his enthusiasm infectious. Jabari, who was driving, nodded. "And no cell phones, just us and nature." The idea of disconnecting from technology felt liberating, and they could already imagine the warmth of a crackling fire. As they continued their journey, the atmosphere began to shift. The sky turned gray, and dark clouds rolled in, blocking out the sun. "Looks like a storm is coming," Jabari said, glancing at the sky. "But it'll be fine. We'll just stay inside." The friends were not deterred. They were determined to enjoy their weekend away from the chaos of the city. Upon arriving at the cabin, they were greeted by its rustic charm. The wooden beams and stone fireplace created a cozy atmosphere. However, the increasing wind and the distant rumble of thunder made them acutely aware of the storm approaching. They unloaded their bags and hurried inside, laughter mingling with the sound of raindrops beginning to tap against the roof. Once inside, they quickly lit a fire in the fireplace, the flames dancing and casting flickering shadows on the walls. The warmth enveloped them, and they settled into the comfortable couches with mugs of hot cocoa in hand. As the storm outside grew louder, they felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Let's tell ghost stories," Omari suggested, his grin broadening. The others eagerly agreed, their imaginations igniting as they shared tales of haunted houses and mysterious creatures lurking in the dark. With each story, the wind howled outside, creating an eerie backdrop that heightened their suspense. Suddenly, a loud crash of thunder shook the cabin, causing Imani to jump. "That one was really close," she squeaked, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. The friends laughed, trying to dismiss their growing unease. But deep down, the atmosphere had shifted from playful to something more serious. As the night deepened, the storm raged on outside. Rain hammered against the roof, and the wind howled like a wild animal. The friends huddled closer together, the warmth of the fire contrasting with the chill that seeped through the walls. They continued sharing stories, but a sense of unease lingered in the air. Imani suggested they play a board game to lighten the mood. "How about we play Truth or Dare?" she proposed, her voice brightening the atmosphere. They all agreed, eager for a distraction from the storm. The game started innocently enough, with laughter echoing through the cabin as they took turns daring each other to do silly things. But as the game progressed, they began to reveal secrets and fears, the atmosphere becoming more intimate. Omari shared his fear of the dark, and Jabari admitted he was terrified of spiders. They laughed together, their fears feeling smaller in the warmth of their friendship. But as the night went on, the storm outside intensified, and the wind began to moan, making the cabin feel isolated and eerie. "Let's go outside for a moment," Dakari suggested, hoping to break the tension. They grabbed their jackets and stepped out onto the porch. The storm was fierce, rain whipping through the air, but standing together under the awning felt exhilarating. They shouted into the wind, letting their laughter mix with the sound of the storm. "Isn't this amazing?" Omari said, his eyes sparkling with adrenaline. "It feels like we're in a movie." But just as he spoke, a particularly loud clap of thunder rumbled overhead, causing them all to jump. They hurried back inside, their hearts racing. Once inside, they settled back down with more cocoa, the warmth of the fire comforting them. However, the story soon returned to a darker tone, and they began to share local legends about the woods surrounding the cabin. Tales of strange noises, ghostly figures, and lost souls wandering the forest filled the room, each story adding to the growing sense of unease. "Do you think there are really spirits out there?" Imani asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe they're just trying to find their way home," Dakari replied, his gaze thoughtful. The friends fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as the wind howled outside. As they settled into a comfortable silence, a strange noise suddenly broke through the sound of the storm. It was a low, eerie sound, almost like a moan, echoing through the trees outside. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier laughter replaced with tension. "What was that?" Imani whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Jabari stood up, trying to sound brave. "It's probably just the wind," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. The others nodded, but a sense of dread hung in the air. "Should we check it out?" Omari suggested, a mix of curiosity and fear in his eyes. Imani shook her head. "It's probably nothing. Let's just stay here." But the noise persisted, growing louder and more insistent. The wind howled, almost as if it were warning them. Finally, Dakari's curiosity got the better of him. "I'll go see what it is," he declared. "I'll be right back." The others watched, anxiety swirling in their stomachs, as he stepped outside into the storm. The rain soaked him immediately, and the darkness swallowed him whole. "Dakari," Imani called, but he waved her off. "I'm fine. Just stay here." The wind whipped around him, and he squinted into the dark, trying to make out the source of the noise. After a few tense moments, Dakari returned, looking shaken. "There's something out there," he said, his voice low. The others gasped, their hearts racing. "We should go check it out together," Omari suggested, trying to sound brave but failing to hide the tremor in his voice. Imani glanced at the others, uncertainty in her eyes. "What if it's dangerous?" she said, fear creeping in. But the thrill of adventure pulled them all in. They gathered their flashlights and stepped out into the storm once more, the rain pouring down and the wind howling like a wild animal. Together, they moved cautiously, shining their lights into the darkness, the noise guiding them deeper into the woods. As they ventured further into the woods, the wind rustled the leaves above them, creating a symphony of sounds that echoed in the night. The strange moaning noise seemed to come from all directions, wrapping around them like a thick fog. Each step felt heavier, and the darkness loomed closer, but they pressed on, driven by curiosity and fear. "Maybe it's just an animal," Jabari suggested, trying to reassure himself and the others. "It could be a deer or something." But deep down, they all felt that it was something more than that. Imani shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her as they trudged through the mud, the rain soaking them to the bone. Suddenly, Omari stopped. "Wait, do you hear that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. The friends fell silent, straining to listen. The moaning sound grew louder, almost as if it were calling to them. "It sounds like it's coming from that direction," Imani said, pointing into the thick trees. A sense of dread washed over them, but the allure of the unknown pulled them forward. They moved cautiously, each crack of a twig underfoot amplifying their fear. As they approached the source of the noise, they discovered an old, abandoned cabin hidden among the trees. It was dark and worn, the windows cracked and covered in dirt. The moaning noise was now unmistakable, echoing from within. "This place is creepy," Jabari said, his voice shaky. The friends huddled closer together, the the storm raging around them. What if there's someone inside? Imani whispered, her heart racing. Dakari took a deep breath, trying to muster his courage. We should check it out, he said, though his own resolve was faltering. They approached the cabin slowly, the wind howling like a warning. The door was slightly ajar, creaking ominously as they pushed it open. The interior was dark and musty, filled with the scent of decay. Shadows danced around them as their flashlights flickered. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy with silence, broken only by the strange noise that now filled the air. The friends stepped cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Old furniture lay scattered about, covered in dust and cobwebs. The moaning sound grew louder, wrapping around them like a haunting melody. What is making that sound? Imani whispered, her voice trembling. Dakari directed his flashlight toward a corner of the room, revealing a dusty old music box sitting on a table. It was slightly open, and the eerie noise seemed to emanate from within. Maybe it's just broken, Jabari suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. Imani felt drawn to the music box. I'll see what it is, she said, reaching out to touch it. But just as her fingers brushed against the surface, the wind howled through the cracks in the cabin, causing the door to slam shut behind them. They all jumped back, fear flooding their senses. Let's get out of here, Dakari yelled, panic rising in his voice. But the door wouldn't budge, trapped by the storm outside. The friends pushed and pulled, desperation filling their minds. Come on, we can't be stuck here, Omari shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. But the door remained stubbornly closed. Imani spotted a window at the back of the cabin. We can try that, she said, pointing urgently. The group rushed toward the window, hoping it would offer an escape. They pried it open just enough for them to squeeze through. One by one, they climbed out into the stormy night, rain pelting their skin. They landed in the mud outside, relief flooding over them. We made it, Imani exclaimed, catching her breath. But their sense of safety was short-lived. The forest was now a dark labyrinth, the trees looming ominously above them. Which way do we go? Jabari asked, panic rising in his chest. The wind howled around them, making it hard to think. Stay close, Dakari shouted, trying to keep them together. They began to walk, the sound of the storm mingling with the strange noise from the cabin. Each step felt heavy, dread filling the air as they realized they had no idea where they were. The friends wandered deeper into the woods, the darkness closing in around them. The rain continued to pour, drenching them to the bone, but they pressed on, fear pushing them forward. The strange noise persisted, echoing through the trees like a haunting call. What if we never find our way back? Imani whispered, her voice quivering. What if we're lost forever? The thought sent chills down their spines, and they huddled closer together, seeking comfort in their shared anxiety. Let's try to retrace our steps, Jabari suggested, though his voice was laced with uncertainty. They turned around, trying to remember the path they had taken. But every tree looked the same, every shadow felt menacing, and the storm only made it harder to see. As they walked, the moaning sound grew louder, almost drowning out the rain. What if it's following us? Omari said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Maybe we should just go back to the cabin, Imani suggested, but the fear of that dark place made them hesitate. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and cloaked. The friends gasped, fear gripping their hearts. What do we do? Jabari stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The figure moved closer, and they felt a strange pull toward it. Help me, it whispered, its voice barely audible over the storm. The friends exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do. The figure's eyes glimmered faintly in the darkness, revealing a deep sadness that resonated with them. We're trying to find our cabin, Dakari called out, his voice trembling. The figure pointed deeper into the woods. This way, it said softly. Despite their fear, the friends felt a strange sense of trust. They exchanged hesitant glances before deciding to follow. With hesitant steps, the friends followed the figure through the storm. The path was narrow, the wind howling around them. The figure moved gracefully, leading them safely as they struggled to keep up. As they walked, the figure began to fade into the shadows, but not before glancing back at them with those sorrowful eyes. "Do you think it's really helping us?" Jabari asked, unease creeping back into his voice. "I think it might just be lost too," Imani replied, her voice softening. They followed closely, trusting in the guidance of the mysterious figure. The woods felt alive, the sound of the storm blending with the whispers of the trees. Each step forward felt like a leap of faith. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they saw the glow of their cabin in the distance. Relief flooded over them, and they quickened their pace. As they reached the porch, they turned to thank the figure, but it had vanished into the darkness. The friends stood in silence for a moment, the storm still raging around them. "What just happened?" Omari asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I think we encountered something from the woods," Dakari said, still feeling the lingering chill. "But it was trying to help us." They gathered their thoughts, the fear slowly fading as warmth filled the cabin. Inside, they lit candles and made more cocoa, grateful to be back together. Outside, the storm continued to howl, but inside, they felt safe. They reflected on the night's events, realizing that even in the darkest moments, they had each other. As they settled back into the cozy space, the atmosphere shifted from fear to gratitude. The laughter returned, mixing with the sound of the storm, creating a comforting melody. They shared their thoughts about the figure, each one feeling the weight of the night lift. "Maybe it was a guardian spirit," Imani suggested, her eyes sparkling with wonder. "Or maybe just a lost traveler," Omari added, a thoughtful expression on his face. They each took turns sharing what they thought, their bond strengthening as they spoke. As they settled into a comfortable rhythm, they couldn't shake the memory of the figure. Imani couldn't help but wonder who or what it was. "What do you think it wanted?" she mused aloud. The others pondered this question, their minds wandering through the possibilities. "It could have been warning us," Jabari suggested, his voice thoughtful. "Or maybe it just wanted company." The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the cabin, they found solace in each other's presence. They lit the fireplace, the flames crackling and casting a warm glow around them. Feeling emboldened, Omari suggested they tell more stories. "Let's share our own ghost stories," he declared, his eyes lighting up with excitement. They began to weave tales of spirits and specters, the atmosphere filled with both fear and laughter. As they shared their stories, they began to feel a connection to the figure they had encountered. "It was like it was guiding us," Imani said, reflecting on the experience. "Maybe it's a protector of the woods," Jabari added, his voice filled with wonder. Their conversation turned to the legends surrounding the forest, stories of lost travelers and spirits seeking closure. "Do you think we should come back and explore more?" Dakari asked, his adventurous spirit ignited. "Next time, maybe during the day," Omari suggested, and they all laughed at the idea of returning to the very place that had frightened them so much. As the night wore on, the storm began to die down, the howling wind turning into a gentle whisper. They moved closer to the fire, the warmth wrapping around them like a blanket. The tales of the night filled their hearts with a sense of wonder and camaraderie, reminding them that even in fear, they were not alone. Finally, the storm subsided, and the rain became a soft patter against the roof. The friends felt a sense of calm wash over them, the tension of the night slowly fading. "We made it through," Imani said, her voice filled with relief. They exchanged smiles, the fear of the unknown replaced with gratitude for their safety. "Let's make a pact," Dakari suggested, his eyes sparkling. "No matter what happens, we stick together." They all nodded, their hearts united in the promise. They settled into a comfortable silence, the sound of the fire crackling filling the space. As they sat together, they reflected on their adventure. "That was the scariest night of my life, Jabari admitted, a hint of laughter in his voice. But it was also the most exciting. They all agreed, realizing that facing their fears together had made them closer. The atmosphere shifted from fear to warmth as they shared stories of their favorite moments from the trip. They talked about the food they would cook, the games they would play, and the memories they would create. The night felt alive with possibilities. The storm outside now just a memory. Eventually, they all grew tired, the day's events weighing heavily on their eyelids. "Let's get some rest," Imani suggested, stifling a yawn. They each settled into their blankets, the warmth of the fire comforting them. As they closed their eyes, they felt a sense of peace, knowing they were safe together. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a gentle light over the cabin. Imani was the first awake, stretching as she sat up. The storm had passed, leaving behind a fresh, crisp air and the faint scent of pine. She smiled, grateful for the comfort of the cabin and her friends. One by one, the others began to wake. Dakari rubbed his eyes, yawning widely. "Did that really happen last night?" he asked, still feeling the remnants of their adventure. "It did," Imani replied, grinning, "and we survived." After a quick breakfast of toast and fruit, the friends ventured outside. The world felt transformed, the storm having washed everything clean. Sunlight filtered through the trees, creating a beautiful pattern on the ground. "Let's explore," Omari suggested, his adventurous spirit reignited. They wandered through the woods, marveling at the beauty around them. The trees stood tall and proud, the air filled with the sound of birds chirping. As they walked, they reflected on their experience, each moment more vibrant in the light of day. "Do you think we'll ever see that figure again?" Jabari asked, a hint of longing in his voice. "Maybe it's watching over us," Dakari replied, looking up at the sky. They all felt a sense of connection to the woods, a respect for the mysteries it held. As they hiked, they found a small clearing with a beautiful view of the mountains in the distance. They sat down to rest, taking in the breathtaking scenery. "This is what we came for," Imani said, her heart full. They spent the day exploring, laughing, and creating new memories together. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the cabin, they felt grateful for the adventure they had shared. That night, they gathered around the fire once more, sharing their hopes and dreams for the future. The fears of the previous night felt like a distant memory, replaced by a sense of unity and friendship. And as the flames flickered and the stars twinkled above, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. In the heart of the woods, surrounded by the warmth of their bond, they felt truly at home. Good night, dear reader. May your dreams be filled with warmth and the gentle whispers of the winds outside. Asterisk.